So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Text number 6. Or maybe we did 6. We're on text number 7. Yeah, we're on number 7. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma. Vichitatma Jitendriyaha. Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma. Kurvanapi na libyate. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma. Vijitatma Jitendriyaha. Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma. Kurvanapi na libyate. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma. Vichitatma Jitendriyaha. Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma. Kurvanapi na libyate.
Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma.
Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma.
Vijitatma Jitendriyaha.
Vijitatma Jitendriyaha.
Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma.
Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma.
Kurvanapi na libyate.
Kurvanapi na libyate.
Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma.
Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma. Vijitatma Jitendriyaha. Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma. Kurvanapi na libyate.
Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma.
Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma.
Vijitatma Jitendriyaha.
Vijitatma Jitendriyaha.
Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma.
Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma.
Kurvanapi na libyate.
Kurvanapi na libyate.
Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma.
Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma.
Vijitatma Jitendriyaha.
Vijitatma Jitendriyaha. Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma. Kurvanapi na libyate. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma. Vijitatma Jitendriyaha. Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma. Kurvanapi na libyate. Anybody want to try it over here?
Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma.
Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma.
Vijitatma Jitendriyaha.
Vijitatma Jitendriyaha.
Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma.
Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma. Kurvanapi na libyate. Yoga Yuktaha. Engaged in devotional service. Vishuddha Atma. A purified person. Vijit Atma. Self-controlled. Jitendriyaha. Having conquered the senses. Sarvabhuta. To all living entities. Atma Bhut Atma. Compassionate. Kurvanapi. Although engaged in work. Na Never. Libyate is entangled. One who works in devotion, who's a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. Purport: one who's on the path of liberation by Krishna consciousness is very dear to every living being, and every living being is dear to him. This is due to his Krishna consciousness. Such a person cannot think of any living being as separate from Krishna. Just as the leaves and branches of a tree are not separate from the tree, he knows very well that by pouring water on the root of the tree, the water will be distributed to all the leaves and branches, or by supplying food to the stomach, the energy is automatically distributed throughout the body. Because one who works in Krishna consciousness is servant to all, he is very dear to everyone. And because everyone is satisfied by his work, he is pure in consciousness. Because he is pure in consciousness, his mind is completely controlled. And because his mind is controlled, his senses are also controlled. Because his mind is always fixed on Krishna, there is no chance of his being deviated from Krishna, nor is there a chance that he will engage his senses in matters other than the service of Krishna. He does not like to hear anything except topics relating to Krishna. He does not like to eat anything which is not offered to Krishna, and he does not wish to go anywhere if Krishna is not involved. Therefore, his senses are controlled. A man of controlled senses cannot be offensive to anyone. One may ask, quote, why then was Arjuna offensive in the battle to others? Wasn't he in Krishna consciousness? Arjuna was only superficially offensive because, as has already been explained in the second chapter, all the assembled persons on the battlefield could continue to live individually as the soul cannot be slain. So spiritually, no one was killed on the battle of Kurukshetra. Only their dresses were changed by the order of Krishna, who was personally present. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the orders of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of work. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurnitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukam Karoti Vachalam Yad Kripa Taraham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So this part of the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is explaining, and the next verses are explaining, what it really means to be in karma yoga or Krishna consciousness. So the first thing that Krishna tells Arjuna, if someone's working in devotional service, they're working in devotional service because they're purified. Right? What does it mean to be purified? When we think of a purified person, what does it mean? Does it mean that they got clean clothes on? Or they got new clothes? Or what does it mean, purified person?
Krishna is a symbol of love, peace, right? So I am also experiencing that, and I can say myself because I am in this consciousness.
So you're saying that if someone is experiencing Krishna, then they'll be purified. That's a purified person. Someone who's experiencing Krishna.
Krishna is the name. Again, I'm just
Well, because Krishna and Krishna's qualities are one and the same thing. So if you're absorbed in Krishna's qualities, you're absorbed in Krishna. Just like if you're absorbed in the name of Krishna, similarly, you're absorbed in Krishna, because Krishna and Krishna's name are one and the same thing. So a purified person is a person who is absorbed in Krishna. So such a person who's absorbed in Krishna, he may do many things. He may act on many different platforms, but he's not bound up by that work. He doesn't become entangled by that work. Why? Because he's doing it for Krishna. You have one person who goes out to the shop and buys some goods, some rice, some dal, and he comes home and he makes khichdi, and then he eats the khichdi, right? So a devotee, a purified person, goes to the same store, buys the same rice and dal, comes home, cooks the khichdi, offers it to Krishna first, and then takes Krishna's prasadam. So it appears to, objectively, to a person that they're both doing the same thing. He bought rice and dal, he bought rice and dal. Why you're saying he's purified? Why you're saying he's not purified? Actually, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, if you eat food without offering it first, verily you're eating only sin, right? Kilbaishai, sin, papa. So there's a gulf of difference. Although it looks like on the surface you got two people buying rice and dal. So why would one be purified? Why? Because he's going to the store for Krishna, he's purchasing items for Krishna, he's coming back and cooking it for Krishna, and then he's going to offer it to Krishna. And when he eats it, after he's offered it to Krishna, he's thinking all the time, this is Krishna's mercy. This is Krishna prasadam. So such a person, there's no reaction. You know, there's one religion where they try to avoid karma. And it's very bad karma to have your cell phone on during the class, right? So you always want to have your cell phone off. Otherwise you get some really bad karma. So there's some religion, they try to avoid karma. They want to, stay away from karma. So you see they wear a mask and they keep a broom and they're brushing the sidewalk so they don't step on any bug or ant, because they're trying to avoid karma, right? So like that, you can never avoid karma. It's not possible, because no matter what you do, still you have to light the fire to cook, and as soon as you light the fire, so many living entities are burnt up. You have to still drink water, right? When you drink water, so many living entities are killed. When you crush the spices, so many living, when you walk, right? So that's not the method for becoming free from karma. Real karma yoga is to engage one's senses and activities in the service of Krishna. Then you become free from karma, right?
Like blinking your eyes is also a karma. If you are blinking your eyes, because senses, the karma is different, and soul karma, because soul and body is two separate things, right? So soul does different things and the body has different category. Whatever you do through your hand, you're just making your stomach and everything fulfill. That's all. And above the body, like you're talking about keeping engaged, what do you want to see, what do you want to hear, what do you want to speak, right? These are the windows for the soul.
Right.
Okay. So the karma is a two type. Karma yogi, we are talking about like Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is like soul consciousness, supreme soul.
No, Krishna conscious means to be conscious of the Supreme Soul. Everyone is a soul. We are all Atma. But we're not the Supreme Atma. We're not the Paramatma. The Paramatma is there, and Krishna's one of his expansions is the Paramatma. But we're not the Paramatma, as some philosophers feel, that you realize that that everyone is one. It's all one, right? There's no difference between any particular living entity and myself, and there's no difference between me and the Supreme. But that's not what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Na tvevahum dyatunasam na tvam name janadipa na chaivana bhavishama sarveva yamataparam. Krishna tells Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra that never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So that means that we maintain our individuality. Krishna maintains his individuality, and we maintain our individuality.
So we have a choice.
We always have a choice. And the choice is that either you surrender to Krishna or you don't surrender to Krishna. If you surrender to Krishna, you're controlled by Krishna. But if you don't surrender to Krishna, then you're controlled by Krishna's material energy.
And if we turn around to the world, like the planet is moving the same way. Similarly, if we just face to the Krishna, we can see the light and we can be purified.
Well, not only see the light is just one aspect of Krishna. Krishna, Brahma iti Paramatma iti Bhagavan iti Sabhyate, it says in Srimad Bhagavatam. So Krishna has this all-pervasive energy which is called the Brahma Jyoti, which is something described like light, it's energy. Just like the energy of the sun is the sunlight. And the sunlight comes in the room and fills up the room. So you feel the energy of the sun and you experiencing the energy of the sun. So in the same way, the Brahma Jyoti is an energy of Krishna. It's the totality of the Lord's brilliant effulgence. But besides that, he has his personal form. He has this localized form. God is situated in everyone's heart as the Paramatma. Sarvasya chaham hridisani visto. I'm situated in everyone's heart, Krishna says. And at the same time, he has his personal form, and he's situated in Goloka Vrindavan, and he's interacting with his devotees. So everything's going on by his arrangement. The creation, the maintenance of the creation, the annihilation of the creation. It's going on by his energy. But he personally doesn't have to do anything. He's there in Vrindavan with his devotees. And it's stated that Krishna never goes outside of Vrindavan. He's always there. So someone who is absorbed in serving to Krishna, then they become oblivious to their, how the material body is even working. Prabhupada gives the example of somebody that's drunk on wine, right? They don't know whether their shirt is on right or wrong, or they don't have no idea, right? They're oblivious, right? So like that, a Krishna conscious person is so absorbed in Krishna, they become oblivious to the workings of the material body. The person in Krishna consciousness is totally dependent on the Supreme Lord. So he understands his identity as separate from the body and as part and parcel of Krishna. And what's described here in the purport is that such a person who's in that consciousness of seeing every living entity as part of Krishna, they become dear to everyone, right? They don't differentiate, right? This is a high-class Brahmana, and this is a low-class Shudra. They don't see the body. They don't see externally. They see, here's eternal spirit soul. This person's part and parcel of Krishna. So some philosophers feel that, okay, everyone's part of Narayan, so we'll go out and serve the poor people. Dridya Narayan. Right? Narayan is the poor people. So Prabhupada says, well, if the poor people are Narayan, what about the dog Narayan or the cat Narayan? Or what about the rich man Narayan? Right? Why you're only serving the Dridya Narayan? You should also serve the rich man Narayan. Right? So this is the fallacy in their understanding, right? That Prabhupada says they have a poor fund of knowledge. Unless you get the knowledge from the right source, you'll make a mistake. You'll be misled. You have to get it from the right source. And the right source is Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Person, and the Supreme Knowledge is coming from Him. Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Itam Uttamam Pratyakshavigam Mamyam Susukam Kartamaviyam. That this is the King of Knowledge. Right? Why is it the King? It's coming from Krishna. It's the most confidential of all knowledge. Unless you get it handed down from Krishna through the line of disciplic succession, there'll be some change. Right? You have to get the knowledge as it is. You have to get the knowledge unchanged, not with anybody's own idea. Religion can't be decided by someone. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat parnitam. Religion comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from the Supreme Lord. He establishes what is Dharma. We, as conditioned souls, have imperfect senses. We make mistakes. We have a cheating propensity. Right? What's the other one?
Illusion.
We're in big illusion. Most of the time, we're in big illusion. So the knowledge that we come up with is affected by these inherent drawbacks, right? But the knowledge that comes from Krishna, it's beyond the human defects that we have. No mistakes. No, Krishna doesn't have material senses. His senses are perfect. His senses, Krishna's senses are so powerful that any one sense can perform the activity of any other sense. Krishna can see with his ears, right? He can eat with his eyes. He can do, all the activities interchangeably between the different senses, right? So he doesn't have imperfect senses. He's got super senses. And not only that, the living entity comes into the material world out of a desire to enjoy here in the material world and be happy here in the material world. And then they become illusioned, right? They interact with the material energy. They wrongly think that they can manipulate the material energy to bring them happiness, right? This is what in the spiritual world, everybody is in a relationship with Krishna. And everybody's working with Krishna. Everybody's enjoying with Krishna, right? And everybody sees that Krishna is enjoying and they're happy about that, right? But when the living entity thinks, well, I'll also enjoy, right? Separately, I'll get my own little program for enjoyment together, and that's when the living entity comes into the material world. We're in the material world because of our wrong conclusion that I can enjoy separately from Krishna. It's not possible. No one can enjoy separately from Krishna, because Krishna is the root cause of everything. Sarva karana karanam. He is everything, and He's the root cause of everything. So if we are going to actually be in our, Prabhupada says, constitutional position, in Hindi it's swabhavik, right? Swabhavik, right? Nature, our original nature. Then we need to be in connection with Krishna. And in this age, one begins establishing that relationship with Krishna by chanting Krishna's holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Everyone in India, especially those who say that they're Hindus, they all accept the Bhagavad Gita as the holy book. You know, it's a sacred scripture. Even now, in other countries, everyone realizes, many people, especially philosophers and professors, they realize that there's so much understanding in Bhagavad Gita. Great philosophers in the West, such as Emerson and Thoreau, they were great thinkers, and they came, but they said that any other philosophy looks very insignificant in front of the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Why do they say like that? Right? Because this philosophy is not something that people, a person, a great thinker thought up, but it's coming from the Supreme Lord. It's coming from Krishna. And if we absorb ourselves, if we try to understand what Krishna is saying, then we worship Krishna with our intelligence, and we establish a relationship with Krishna. We become purified, and once we become purified, then we're fixed in what they call Nishkam Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga, working for Krishna, working for the Supreme Lord, without any desire for myself. Right now we're doing activities, we're doing so many activities, but we do those activities because we think, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of this? Right? If I'm not getting anything, agar kuch nahi milta hai, to ye kaam nahi karega. Hai ki nahi? But this is something completely different, right? This is nishkam, without desire for your, I should say, a pure devotee's desire is only the pleasure of Krishna. He's existing to give Krishna pleasure. He knows that if I want the body to be strong, then I should supply that food to the stomach, and automatically all the parts of the body will be benefited. In the same way, he has great concern for all living entities. But how does he express that? He expresses that by serving Krishna. By serving Krishna. And in that way, all living entities are satisfied, just like if you give water to the root of the tree, then all the branches, all the leaves, every part of the tree gets water if you supply to the root. A pure devotee is fixed in this understanding. And this is what Krishna is trying to explain here in these 4 or 5 verses of the 5th chapter. Starting with verse number 7, going up to verse number 12, he's explaining what a person in real nishkam bhakti yoga or karma yoga is like. Right? So should we go to the next verse? This is 8. Yeah. Questions.
Prabhupada says,
Questions.
a man who controls senses cannot be offensive to anyone.
That's right.
So, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, this pastimes comes. Lord Chaitanya was in Banaras and Parkasananda Saraswati. They were Mayavadi sannyasi and they were criticizing.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
senses were controlled, but they were...
Were their senses controlled? If the senses are not fixed in Krishna, they're not really controlled. See, Mayavadis, they may, by some effort, try to control the senses, but they're not on a platform where they can continuously do that. That's why Prabhupada says they come down to mundane welfare activities like opening hospitals, and there's so many missions where they talk about spiritual things and being elevated in spiritual consciousness, but what are their activities? eye hospitals, orphanages, right? They have no information about rendering service to Krishna. And so therefore, the senses require real engagements. They come down to such materialistic activities. It's good work, no doubt. Can't say it's not good, but it's not transcendental work. Transcendental work is serving to Krishna. So whether their sense of course, Prakashananda Saraswati was an extraordinary devotee of the Lord, but he had this wrong conclusion, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he was invited to come to lunch by Prakashananda Saraswati. The Mayavadis wanted to talk to him because they saw that while he was in Varanasi, he had a big following. Many people were coming and chanting and dancing, so they invited him to lunch. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordinarily would never go to the lunch with the Mayavadis. He'd never go. Lord Chaitanya, when he was traveling, he would only go to the house of a devotee, right? Some Brahmin would invite him, he'd go to lunch. But he thought, okay, because Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar had complained to Mahaprabhu that we can't bear these Mayavadis, they're always criticizing you. They're criticizing you. We don't like it. We feel like dying when we hear criticism. The Prabhupada says in the purport that they were neophyte devotees. Neophyte devotees, they don't know how to preach Krishna consciousness properly. So they were on a very rudimentary platform. But anyway, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as he was hearing the complaints, an invitation came and he decided to accept the invitation. He went to the place of Prakashananda Saraswati. He had so many followers, thousands of followers, right? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to this place, and where they take off the shoes and clean their feet, Mahaprabhu sat in that place. And Prakashananda Saraswati came, and he saw that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was as effulgent as the sun. He said that certainly you really are Narayan. I can see by your effulgence. And he gave his hand, he said, my dear sannyasi, please don't sit in this unclean place. Come and sit with us. So by extending his hand to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that little bit of service that he performed purified his consciousness. So when they began explaining to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you're a very effulgent sannyasi, and we think you're almost like Narayan, you're like Narayan. And they all think they're Narayan. And that's why they say Om Namo Narayan when they greet each other. Om Namo Narayan. Because two Narayans are greeting each other. So they said, really you are, by your effulgence we can understand that you're Narayan, but why you don't study Vedanta? Why you're chanting and dancing like a sentimentalist? You should study Vedanta. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he began to explain to Prakashananda Saraswati what Vedanta is. And all of his followers were listening very intently. People can become confused, right? They hear so many things out there and so many people injecting their own ideas, and people don't get the real essence of what a thing is, which can only come in the disciplic succession. Otherwise it becomes broken. Something, what do you call it? Khichdi is and put in there, right? So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was speaking to Prakashananda Saraswati and explaining Vedanta as it is, right? They became defeated. They understood this is the absolute truth. And therefore, at the end of that conversation, Prakashananda Saraswati and all his many thousands of followers, all Mayavadi sannyasis, began chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this is the no, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared just a little over 500 years ago in West Bengal, in a place called Sri Mayapur. And he inaugurated or started the Sankirtan movement and spread it all over India. This Harinam Sankirtan was inaugurated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his whole life was dedicated to Krishna and preaching Krishna consciousness. So there's a number of followers that are coming in a line from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, is in that line of spiritual masters coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there's a line before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. It's in the front of this book. You can see the line of disciplic succession. It goes all the way up to Krishna. Krishna.
We all talk about Krishna, but we don't talk about Ram. We praise Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. Even we worship Radha also, but there is no talk about like Radha.
Oh, there's so much talk about Radha, but you know, one should actually become qualified to understand.
Like as you told Khichdi.
Everything about Radha and Krishna is very important, but one has to become qualified to understand Radha and Krishna. It's not just an ordinary thing, it's very confidential. The relationship between Radha and Krishna and the gopis.
It's not about the relationship, it's about the who is the important person. As you said earlier, that Krishna is the main rule of everything. So being in a Krishna consciousness means liberate you will get the freedom. Ultimately, why we are here for?
Yeah, but even if you want the freedom, the real freedom is based on a relationship. Without relationship, no one is ever satisfied. And the whole beginning of the Vedic literature is Sambandha Gyan. Sambandha, developing that relationship with the, with the material energy. What is our relationship with the material energy? What is the relationship with everyone else? What is our relationship ultimately with the Supreme Lord? So that's Sambandha Gyan, their knowledge of establishing our real relationship with everything, with Krishna and all his energies. That's the topic of the Bhagavad Gita.
But to have a relationship with anybody, I should know his name, his address, and his occupation, what he actually does.
Yes.
Okay? And
yes.
what actually I'm looking for, what kind of relation I'm looking for, so that's why I'm going to that person.
Yeah, that's what Srila Prabhupada gave us. Srila Prabhupada gave us his name, he gave us his address, he gave us his telephone number, everything he gave us. And you're becoming in touch with Krishna. Just like if you get on your cell phone and you call your mother, you're in touch with your mother. In the same way, when you chant Krishna's holy name, you're in touch with Krishna. And Krishna knows so much about you just by the way you chant his name. Whether you love him, whether you don't love him. Just like in your house, your mother calls your name, right? And if she's angry, you know it just by the way she says your name. Or if she wants something, you know it just by the way she says your name, isn't it? She doesn't have to say what her mood is. All she has to do is say your name. And you know, I'm in trouble. Or I didn't do something and now mera piche ho gaya. Everything you know, simply by the way she calls your name. In the same way, Krishna, within our hearts, he knows exactly how we feel about him just by the way we chant his name. Right? We're chanting the holy name of Krishna, looking at our cell phone. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Then Krishna knows where you're at, right? It's personal, it's a relationship, it's a personal relationship. And we have forgotten that relationship since time immemorial. We've tried to find happiness in every other conceivable way except Krishna. Now, what devotional service means, what Nishkam Karma Yoga means, is that we reverse that. We start to try to again establish that relationship with Krishna, that personal, very personal, loving relationship. And because of our conditioning, because we're so covered over by so many years and lifetimes, millions of lifetimes of avoiding and ignoring Krishna, it takes time, but it's possible by practice and detachment. What is the practice? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. And what is the detachment? The 4 regulator principles. No meat, no fish, no eggs, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex life. You follow these 4 things, chant Hare Krishna, Krishna's holy name, and very quickly you'll start to see Krishna everywhere. You'll see that Krishna is arranging things for me. Krishna is in my life. It's not that he's not in my life, he's in my life. But he'll only come in your life if you surrender. You got to surrender. If you don't surrender, why will Krishna come in your life? So how do we show our surrender? We chant, and we try to chant nicely, right? As we continue to chant and hear nicely, then Krishna becomes more and more involved in our life. The relationship grows and grows to the point where the devotee can't help but think for Krishna for even a second, like the gopis. The gopis, they were so absorbed in looking at Krishna, they realize that sometimes when they blink, they're not looking at Krishna, they can't see Krishna. So they say, what kind of a creator is Lord Brahma? He made eyes that blink. He's not a very good creator, right? If he was a good creator, these eyes would not blink, and at that time we can't see Krishna. So much absorbed in Krishna, right? We ran out of time. We didn't get a chance to go to text number 8 and 9, right? So when we come back again next Wednesday, hopefully, we'll do 8 and 9. You have a question? Hare Krishna.
You explained how to understand the exact, your examples are very appropriate to understand some of the things. And my question is here, you mentioned for pure soul, whose control is mind and senses. One point is very clear for us, that is everyone is dear to him. But the opposite thing, when we say is dear to everyone. In some of the pastimes we see for the pure devotees, the pure souls, some people may not be, the person may not be dear to all. Sometimes we see in the proper life also, some of the people little not dear because some envy is also there. So how to understand this controversy of this statement, that he is dear to everyone. But in sometimes we see some people will think he is like enemy or this kind of thing. So how to understand?
See, he may be thinking that, the outside person who's not Krishna consciousness may think that there's an enemy. But the pure devotee is not thinking like that. He's not seeing friends and enemies. He's seeing everyone as the eternal servant of Krishna. And we see in the life of the 6 Goswamis in Vrindavan, it's described in the Goswami Astikam, the Dhiradir, even the ruffians and the gentlemen, they all were, favorable to the 6 Goswamis. Whenever there was like a dispute amongst persons, they'd come to the 6 Goswamis for settlement, right? And whatever they said, people would follow, right? Because they knew they weren't playing any favorites. For them, everyone was equal. So even the adir, the ruffians, would come and associate with and take the benefit of the association of the 6 Goswamis. Well, just like that person who sold this property to Srila Prabhupada, Mr. Nair, right? So superficially it appeared that he was, trying to cheat Prabhupada and cheat the devotees. But ultimately, that's external, because at the same time he did, some service by giving the property, even though he had in his mind to take it back, right? But he got purified. And Krishna sees the good of whatever a person does, and the devotee sees everyone as, part and parcel of Krishna, not as enemy or friend. Any other questions?
Devotion is based on relationship, as you said. So what is the relationship as a soul and body?
Pardon?
Soul and body relationship. How do I connect with this piece of life, this we have taken?
Well, we're connected through the body. We're connected to the body through the...
Soul is separate. And
Soul is separate.
What I actually understood by saying, see, I'm inside this, right?
Right.
This is my temple, or you can say house.
Okay.
What's
your address?
Yes. So,
Your apartment.
yes, your apartment. Yes.
You're living there.
Yes, I'm living. The Chetana, Satya Chetana.
Yeah. But you're not alone. You have many other people living there with you.
In my mind.
No? In your stomach.
In my stomach.
Yep.
Okay.
There's about 100 billion living entities in your stomach that live there with you. You're not alone. The flora, gut flora, acidophilus, there's all bacteria that are living in your stomach. So you're not alone. Plus, every single cell in the body is a living entity. It has an Atma. It's a living thing. How do we know? We know because it comes into existence, it grows, it gives some byproducts, it dwindles, and it's annihilated. That's the symptom of consciousness, or the soul. So although this material body we're residing inside, we're sharing the same with so many other living entities also. But the soul, one particular soul, is predominant living entity, right? And this human body that we've been given is an opportunity to establish our relationship with the other living entity that is also there, called the Paramatma. Paramatma. We're the Atma, and we're living with Paramatma. He's residing within our hearts, and this human form is an opportunity to establish that relationship with Paramatma. He's there, and in this age, in Kali Yuga, it's chiefly we establish that relationship by chanting the holy name. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, 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 gatiranyata. That the holy name, the holy name, the holy name in this Kali Yuga is the only way, and the only way for obtaining self-realization. And that self-realization means establishing our relationship with Krishna, the Supreme Self. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.